Okay, we're officially recording because you were telling me way too many good things before the official record, and I want to capture it. Okay, so hello, Larry Roberts. Welcome to the show. We're going to do a non-traditional one here because you're just like too packed with good information to go the traditional route. So,
Well, Laura, we've known each other now for what, 6, 8 weeks, maybe something like that. A couple of months, we'll give it.
yeah,
And I think you know by now that I'm a non-traditional kind of guy,
yes.
and I tend to go against the grain in just about every aspect of life.
You're kind of a rebel.
I'm a rebel like that. I'm a loner.
See, like in high school, you probably would have thought I was too nerdy to hang out because I was like, I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to study
Oh,
for the AP test. You're like, no, let's be a rebel, do silly things.
I was in so much trouble, Laura. I can't even begin to tell you how much trouble I was in.
See?
But I only had to call my mom from the police station once.
Whoa. Okay. Okay. Real fast. What happened there?
Man, it was just a little shoplifting. No real
Oh.
big deal.
Oh,
But
okay.
I
What
was.
did you take?
This is what makes it funny. Me and a buddy of mine, and now I lived in kind of country Sherman, Texas at the time. It's not,
Okay.
it's probably 35, 40,000 people back when I was this age. And we were going to some kind of concert. I don't remember where we were going, but before we go to the concert that evening, we're going to go do a little pond hop and do a little fishing. So I
Oh.
knew I needed some I needed some fish. You just got to kill time. That's what you do in the country is you fish or you hunt or whatever. You run around.
So
But
funny.
me and
I
my
thought that
buddy,
was like an expression for something because I'm from like the suburbs. So I'm like, you were going to go pond fishing? What?
yeah, you go pond hopping. You go hit this pond, see if anything's biting at this pond. If it's not, you go over the hill to the next pond and you do that one a little bit. And there was a lot of ponds in the area that I lived in, and we could hit 6 of them in an afternoon, and you don't know what you're going to catch. So if anything, other than some poison ivy. But, I knew we were going to go fishing before we go to this concert, and I knew I needed sunglasses, and I needed a couple of my favorite lures. And it was a chartreuse roadrunner.
Chartreuse.
Yes, the color chartreuse, which is really just kind of a lime yellow. And a real bright color, and a roadrunner. It's just a little bitty lure that you put on the end of it. It's got a little spinner on it, and man, I catch everything from catfish to black bass on that thing. I never fail. So I had to steal some roadrunners, and I had to steal me some shades. So
So you stole fishing lures and sunglasses. And how old were you? 15, 16?
yeah, probably 50. One of us drove. I think Greg, I won't say his last name, drove. And so I know we were in his truck because I didn't have a truck. And I specifically remember I was so smooth, and I had a technique back then that made me so smooth. And I'm bragging that I was a great thief. But I got so cocky that I would take things and put them on my person. And I didn't care if there were people on the aisle or not. I was so brazen because
Wow.
my whole technique was if you're, hide in plain sight, because it
Yeah.
was the way of the ninja. And I wanted to be a ninja. So I was hiding in plain sight as I stole my sunglasses and my fishing lure. And so needless to say, on accident, I was a little brazen, and the guy that was in plain clothes next to me was a plain clothes cop.
Oh, wow.
So I went through the line. I paid for like one lure, which was another one of my techniques to not look obvious. I would buy
Right.
something. And this was at an Albertsons or a Skaggs Alpha Beta, is what it was called back then. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is cool. And I walk out and I put my lures in the truck in the tackle box back there. And all of a sudden I get a little tap on the shoulder. Sir, you want to come with me? And I was like, oh my God, no, not really. So yeah, they took us upstairs, cuffed us and stuffed us, and they took us down to the police station, had to call mom. So
Wow.
yeah, I got off with man, I want to say just maybe it was probation even. I don't remember exactly what it was. Theft under 20. So I mean
Yeah.
it was petty theft. It wasn't anything like I stole a car. And
Was,
here I am
what was like,
minimizing.
the value of those items? Just wondering.
Like I say, it was less than $20.
Oh,
Because
wow.
what I
Okay.
got hit with was less than theft under 20, which
Oh, I
was
thought you meant under 20 years old, but it was
I
also
can
under
see that.
$20 too.
Under $20. Yeah, if
Oh.
it had gone over $20, now we were talking, you're a big time criminal.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, we're talking about that just to say that I've always been kind of a bit of a rebel. And I mean, if I wasn't in trouble, I wasn't awake is pretty much what it amounts
Oh
to.
my goodness. Now, how did you first get into podcasting and radio? I mean, like your voice is amazing. I could listen to you read the phone book. So did you always have a great voice for this kind of stuff? When were you first drawn to it?
I've as far back as I can remember, people told me I had a great voice. And, oh, you want to go into radio? You want to But going into radio just because you have a great voice doesn't usually pan out. But I did a lot of public speaking. I joined Toastmasters way back in the day, and I crushed it in Toastmasters. I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit because I specifically remember one contest, and I was going up against the president of Grayson County College because I lived in Grayson County. And here I am, some cat. I don't have a degree. I ain't got nothing going on other than I know how to talk. And he and I made it to the finals, and we spoke against each other. I've still got the blue ribbon today.
Wow. Pick to prove it. Pick to prove it. That's awesome.
I will yank it out and take a pig.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Of the ribbon. But yeah, I've always been pulled towards speaking and talking because that's what I do best. I tried the voiceover gig when I was probably in my early 20s. And back then I went to an acting conservatory and took legitimate voice acting. And I loved it. It was such a blast. But at the time, voice acting wasn't as versatile and as diversified as it is today.
Yeah.
With the interwebs, there's more opportunities for voiceover work. Voiceover is everywhere. I mean, if you look around.
Put us in time. Back then, when was back then around?
This was in the 90s.
Okay,
this was
yeah.
The first go at voice acting was in the mid 90s. And I specifically remember, and this tore me down at the time, and I got disenfranchised with the whole idea. The instructor specifically said that if you really wanted to get into voice acting and not just doing some commercials, but if you wanted to voice a character of some sort, you had to wait till one of the existing, living, breathing actors died off.
Wow.
So I'm like, really? Because that kind of sucks, I want to be on G.I. Joe.
It's a small market to break into.
It really was back then. It was a very small and very niche market. And yes, like I say, you could have gotten some commercials and you could have done things that way. Yeah. But in my personal opinion, that's a different level of voice acting. And it's not so much voice acting as just voicing or voice over, And at the time, I really wanted to go more towards voice acting because I always wanted to be an actor as well. So. Yeah. I'm not real attractive, as I said in my bio. So the whole voice acting was perfect for me. I'm like, all right, I can stay back here. Nobody sees me, and I can be anybody I want. It's going to be great. Yeah. Didn't quite work out. So I stepped away from the genre for years and years and years and just did some speech competitions. And I would host award ceremonies and I did a lot of public instruction. I have black belt rank in multiple different styles of martial arts.
Wow.
And I used to work within the community with rape prevention and did some work, very little, but I still brag about it. Did a little work out at the police academy there in Grayson County. And that was a fun experience. But I was put in positions to where I could speak often. And eventually I landed a corporate training role for Texas Instruments, which is a big company here in Texas. You probably have one of their calculators.
I have several of those calculators because I was a nerd and a math teacher. So.
Oh, God. Yeah, you have them all.
Yes, I'm obsessed.
You know more about them than I do, I promise.
TI-83, TI-84, let's go.
I'm in heaven.
Yes.
So I worked for TI for a while, and I originally got in there, and I was just your average worker bee coming in, and I was cleaning the silicon wafers that they make microchips out of. And it's a long story, but they grow those in these big cylindrical crystals, and then they're cut into sections depending on the size that they're selling off. And then you have to go through a real rigorous cleaning process. And I worked in a clean room, and I got to wear my ninja suit every day because I couldn't go in there without this suit on. It's just like you see the Intel commercials. You may have seen those where these guys are running around in colored ninja suits. It's because they're in a clean room. And a clean room that I worked in was 100 times cleaner than an operating room.
Wow.
And then we had another one that was 1,000 times cleaner than an operating room. And that one was very stringent. It was ridiculous. I hated going in there just because of the what you had to go through just to get in.
Took forever.
And
yeah.
I feel sorry for smokers because they had time limits. You had to, if you smoked, you had to have your last smoke 15 minutes before you could even go into the room if you worked in there. So it really cut into their breaks. And I mean, I'm not having pity on them. I'm just saying that it was very stringent. If you had to sneeze, you get down on the floor and you sneeze through the floor. You had gloves and booties and goggles and I mean the whole 9 yards because the class 1 that was the most stringent meant that there was one particle If you look outside right now, if you look through your window and a ray of light shining through, you're probably going to see some things floating around.
Right. Oh,
Those are
yeah.
particles. So imagine looking through that ray of light and not seeing a single particle.
Wow.
It's unheard of. And this room literally had been certified to have 1 particle per cubic foot of air.
Wow.
So pretty cool. But anyways, I'm getting off base.
Right.
Eventually, I worked there, and the Toastmasters opened up some doors for me to move into a corporate training role for TI, and it went from there. So my speaking started to come back around because I was teaching classes, and I was facilitating courses, and I was giving tours. So, of course, my voice got to play a big part there as well. And then a few years ago, I decided to look back at voice acting. And I went back to the exact same conservatory that I went through. And I went through the exact same course again. I went through the beginner course. And this time, though, I stepped it up and even went intermediate. And by the time it got to advanced, I was taking so many workshops and so many conventions and so many just getting into the community and meeting people and learning more that the advanced classes they offered I really didn't need at the time because I'd already learned it from other workshops and other avenues. So, but I'm still friends with the teacher. She's phenomenal. She was great. And I did that for a couple of years. But going back to mixing how I'm a troublemaker, I always had a fascination with several words that most people don't care for. Most of them are 4-letter long, those kind of words. I might use a little profanity here and there or everywhere.
Does one start with an F?
It does.
Okay.
F today. My wife will, if I brought her in here right now into the studio, she will tell you that the very first night I met her, that was probably the first word. Well, maybe followed by that. And that was how I met her. I said, what the F are you doing here? I thought you're married. And what are you doing with him? He was my best friend at the time. We all worked together. So it was more comical than anything. Mm-hmm. But I just blasted her with F, 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 F. And she was just, she'll tell you she was scared to death. She's like, I don't know this person. What's going on? I've never heard this word so many times in my life. So, I kind of have a very brash sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And so podcasting was kind of being brought to the forefront back then. And I'd been introduced to the Joe Rogan podcast. And I was familiar with Joe Rogan from the Ultimate Fighting Championship and that sort of thing. And from Joe Rogan, I heard about some other podcasts. And I started listening to those. And oh, my God, it was foul mouth heaven. And I was like, this is so great. This is right up Larry's alley. This is phenomenal. I want to do this. So I wanted a format where I could say whatever I wanted. I could be as dirty as I wanted, and no one could say a thing about it. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I did. I started a podcast that was filled full of blue comedy, meaning that it's kind of foul.
What was that called?
Well, I'll let you run with it. It's called Accidentally the Whole Tip. And so, think about that one for a minute. It probably won't take long to get the innuendo. So the podcast lived up to the name. I'll just say that much.
so funny. Reminds me of like Wedding Crashers.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly.
Vince Vaughn talks about just the tip for
just the tip. Archer does the same thing. Come on, just the tip. And if you're a guy, you've used the line. Come on, just the tip, just the tip. And then sorry, sorry, went a little too far.
Oh my goodness.
You got accidentally the whole tip, right? I mean, that's what it is. So
right.
Now we don't have an innuendo. We have a very descriptive definition of what the podcast was all about.
Oh,
but I mean, we interviewed people. We had porn stars. We had rappers. Wow. We had a group that was from Canada. I think it was something Cream, and they sang songs that made me blush. It was 2 chicks. And they had an act. They went from club to club, and they sang these songs. And they actually ended up doing the intro song for our podcast. We ran that for, 20, 30 episodes. And they were great. And I'm still friends with one of them on Facebook today. She's cleaned up her act. And her other partner, I guess she's doing her own thing because this one over here, she's gone straight. And she's doing, like legitimate songs that don't talk about profane things. Mm-hmm. So that's what the podcast was all about. And I had an opportunity to have an outlet for my pervertive creative side,
Right.
I don't think pervertive is a word, but I made it up just now.
I think we'll start using it. Perverted. Yeah. Perverted.
So perverted. I don't know. Pervidational.
Yeah. It sounds pervidacious to me. for real. So I wanted to ask you, since you've gone through so many workshops and training around being a great voice actor and speaking, are there any tips that come to mind that you remember learning in those workshops and courses?
Well, there's, it doesn't really translate to podcasting very well. Now, what I can say, and it's some of the things that I took on my very first episode of my podcast, Accidentally the Whole Tip. And this is why I say that a lot of it doesn't translate, because what I did, I had a host for that show, a co-host for that show. And I was just getting into the podcasting thing, but I bought a nice mic, and we had one mic between the two of us, and I had it set up, not even in a studio yet. It was out in my game room here in the house. And I had the wife be really quiet. I said, baby, keep the dogs down. I don't want you barking or anything. Yeah. And I told Jamie, I said, all right, man, now here's what we got to do. Watch your breathing.
And Jamie was the co-host.
Jamie was the co-host. I'm sorry. Yes, Jamie Gravy, big-time comedian now. He's blowing up.
Jamie Gravy. Okay.
Got to give him a shout out. He's already opened for Eddie Griffin once. They flew him out and had him open. His name's even in the credits of Eddie Griffin's latest special. I think it's on Showtime. So my boy Jamie Gravy is doing big things. He's opening tonight at the Arlington Improv tonight. That's his last show locally before he moves to New York to take it to the next level.
I'm going to have to check him out.
He's hilarious. So Jamie Gravy was with me at the time, and then he was still just Jamie Gravitt. He hadn't, donned the Gravy moniker yet. But we sat there, and I said, all right, dude, watch your mouth noises.
Right.
Can't have that. Stay hydrated, all right? Because you don't want any kind of mouth noises. And watch your plosives. Yeah. You can't have any plosives. No b, no p, none of that. None of your plosives. He's like, what the hell is a plosive? I said, well, that's what it is. You just got to be cool. Got to be cool. He's like, all right, man. So, our goal here was to sound as professional, which those were some of the tips that I took away from voice acting. And really, it's just basic mic work. It's not voice acting or podcasting, either one. It's just basic knowledge of how a mic works. And, I'd always heard, too, that you got to have great sound quality. You got to have great sound quality for people to listen to your podcast. It's got to be very sterile. It's got to be quiet in the background.
Right, like dead silent. Yeah.
So we got up on the mic and we would trade, and I wouldn't move the mic even though we'd move our heads. So now Jamie's talking and then I get to talk again, and we would bounce back and forth. And then after the episode was over, oh my God, it was so filthy and it made no sense whatsoever that I said, dude, we're not publishing that. So
wait, it didn't make sense. What? How?
It just didn't. It was just, we were all over the place, and it was just so
random. Random.
It was so beyond random, and we just wanted to be as foul as possible with no filter. And I know that sounds so tacky, but it was from a comedic perspective. It wasn't from any kind of offensive perspective, and we never attempted to offend anyone unless you're offended by the F word or other sorts of words that are related to that. If you don't like profanity, the show wasn't for you. But if you were, it didn't matter what other social banner you wore, it was for you. And so that, I have no shame in that regard. So what we ended up doing was recording another episode, and we kind of tamed down the grossness factor just a bit. But we still maintained the same technique. We maintained no voice noise and no plosives. And we kept our voice very level, very calm, and very precise. And quiet.
But that's not interesting, right?
Oh, my God. And it got worse, Laura. It got worse because what I ended up doing then was I took it into Audacity, which is, a free software. Everybody uses Audacity because it's free. Now, some people will take it to the next level.
It's easy to learn fast, too.
Exactly. And a lot of people will use Audition, which is an Adobe product that is not free, but it's also pro-level type software. And it's much more complex to use. And that's something that I learned from voiceover as well is, they still judge. If you try to be a voiceover artist and you're using Audacity, they're going to poke and make fun of you.
Yeah.
They're not going to consider you legit. And I'll extend on that a little bit, too, here in a minute. So let's come back to that as far as poking fun at you and saying you're not legit, because I just came across a thread yesterday that I was like, see, that is the problem.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll get back to that. That's the problem here in a minute in the voice industry. Very, very cliche, very, very niche and very cliche. Very, if you're not one of us, we're going to poke fun and make fun of you. And you can't.
Isn't that with everything? There's like an in-group and an out-group, and there's certain little rules and things you have to do, which aren't necessarily based in fact or reality. It's just predetermined rules to just kind of qualify you and make you feel in or out or whatever. Yeah.
And what you have to understand there too, while we're on that topic, is that that's in every aspect of whatever you get into. I drove a Ford Raptor for several years, which was my dream truck. It's the Cat Daddy Ford Raptor right off the showroom floor. You could take it and win the Baja 500. I mean, it's literally designed to do that. It was for off-road, just the coolest of cool, right? And I finally had the opportunity to buy that truck, and I bought it and duded it up. I mean, it was everything I do is Batman related. So I had the Bat Raptor, and so it was cool as a fan. I just loved it. And I got involved in the quote unquote Raptor community, and I started to kind of conform to these guys. And then I realized, but I don't like my truck to look like that. I don't want that on my truck. I don't want it. But if you don't, they make fun of you. Wow. You just have that, or right. It's like your cool kids and your princess and your queen story.
Yeah,
same type of gig.
Well, and same with the books too, which we're going to totally dive into.
Yeah,
but people who hit New York Times bestseller, they'll like snub their noses at you for being excited about Amazon. It's just like calm down, like
right.
I'm still proud of it, so screw you. I don't know.
Exactly. So we took these things, and after we get back to the episode that we were recording, I took it into what's it called? Not Audition, but the other one. Audacity. There we go. Thank you. I got snooty there for a minute, and all I could think of was Audition. So, but we'll back that up, and we'll use Audacity. And what I did, man, I guarantee you, for every minute of content we recorded, I spent 4 editing. I guarantee it was a 4-to-1 editing ratio.
Did you edit like every breath, every like
everything in between words? There was no breathing. We were robots because we never breathed. It was just.
It was like your clean room of podcasts.
Exactly what it was.
There were no particles.
There were. That's exactly. Wow, phenomenal tie-in.
Tie it back in.
No wonder you're the host. That is awesome. but yes, that's exactly what it was, and it sucked. And I did that for many, many episodes, and it still sucked. And eventually, I started going, man. And I don't know if it was. I don't want to say that it was being lazy, because I don't think it was.
Yeah.
It was really just it wasn't as natural as I wanted it to be.
Right.
And I was still looking to other podcasts to learn how to podcast. And all of the podcasts that I was listening to at the time were fairly raw. And I don't mean in content. I mean in presentation.
Right.
They didn't have a whole lot of, some of the hosts that I'm listening to sitting here, they're eating edible, products out of California, medicinal products, while they're on air, and they're just going, man, and I was doing, and so I'm like, all right, this is cool. These guys, they're rocking it, and they're not editing anything. You know what I mean? So I started getting more and more open to less and less perfection, and I felt, and I the numbers felt it too, that as I became more relaxed and more relatable, my numbers started growing. My audience started growing. I started getting repeat listeners. I started getting listeners whose names I knew, and I knew I could count on to listen to that episode or the next episode or the next episode. And although I won't mention the company, even our HR manager loved the show. So I'm just saying it was for everybody.
Like you were getting real fans in a tribe because you were being so real and authentic. People could connect with that versus this sterile, let's just like take everything out except for the words.
I believe that 100%. I really do. And, it's the same thing with Readily Random. I do the same thing. I almost fell into that same rut with Readily Random because I thought, well, okay, I'm doing a different format now. I'm doing a straight-laced podcast. It's very clean, no profanity, no innuendos, no anything other than motivation, inspiration, perspiration, celebration, all those Asians, right?
Right.
And I thought for sure now this one's got to be
straight-laced.
I gotta have a set, list, a question list, and I'll ask everybody the same questions and get their take on it. And that lasted, I don't know, I'll say hopefully I haven't gone back and listened, but hopefully it only went on for 7 or 8 episodes. So.
Right. Yeah, I was like that too with this show because I was so nervous in the beginning of messing it up that I would just script out the questions and I'd like read the question off my page. And I'm sure I wasn't as present in listening to the answer. I tried to be, but I was so worried about what's my next question.
Yes.
But after you do it for a little while, you just kind of get a flow and you're like, okay, it's going to be fine. And then you can be way more present. And now I don't script out any questions. Sometimes I'll write little bullets of ideas like, oh, remember to ask about this or that. But I don't script questions. I just try to really listen and be present. And I've gotten feedback from people in the audience that they're like, you asked the exact question I was thinking in the moment. And that's a sign, I think, that you're doing the right thing as a podcast host.
I think so too. And I think it's a sign that you're connected to your guest.
Yeah.
You know, you're not connected, as you just said, to your next question. You're not I don't want to say you're not connected to your show. You're not so connected to the formatting of your show that you lose sight of quality content and quality information that your guest could share with your listener base. Mm-hmm. And I just said listeners, and I meant listener.
You're just creating all these words today. I appreciate it. Just for Copy That Pops, I mean, this show is about words, communication, and writing at its core. So I appreciate your creativity.
Well, I think my creativity comes from this is about my fourth monster today.
Oh
so
my goodness,
I might be a little hyped.
Oh, no. I can't stand those things. My husband likes some, and I'm like, no.
I have one in hand 24/7, honestly, but I really do. I drink them all day, every day, and I could probably buy my own small country if I would just stop buying monsters. We spend a ton.
That's true. We should calculate your expenditure and see.
Oh my gosh, there was a time that I did that because I used to love to get my drink on, and there was a time where we calculated what we were spending on alcohol. And I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
You know, and plus, too, you know, if you ever went for like to refinance the house or anything where somebody had to look at your finances and they go through and they go liquor store, liquor store, liquor store. Oh, food. OK, liquor store. You're like, oh,
you're like,
crap,
do you do nothing else?
So needless to say, I'm sober now. We don't buy any alcohol anymore. So that's cool. But I do still have the monsters and even, you know, my doctor knows I drink them, and he's like, well, just don't drink too many. That's okay, cool. So because he knows I'm not dropping this, doc. It's just not going to happen. So anyways, get off tangent again there.
Yeah. Well, okay. So now your show is Readily Random, and tell me what you do for other podcasters or people who want to get into podcasting, because you and I both are huge nerds for podcasting. Sure. Even your book that you wrote during my coaching program, which I'm so excited that you were a client of mine, it was about podcasting, simplifying podcasting. So tell us a little bit about, you know, what you do for others to help them.
Well, you know, as far as going back, and I'm going to weave this in, so bear with me. Going back to when you asked, what are some of the things you learned from voiceover that you translated to podcasting? A lot, and one of the biggest things that you'll learn in voiceover is equipment. You have to have this mic. You have to have this mic. You have to have all these different mics for different types of voiceover. It's very, very equipment redundant, and you have to spend a ton of cash to build your own studio out, right? And even the studio I have now, it's got sound dampening all over the place, and I think it's a really great sounding space. But it's crap for voiceover,
right? Compared to the
I don't get that
perfection
either,
standards.
You know,
and actually, we're recording this as a video, so I'm going to embed it in the show notes. If anyone wants to actually see the studio behind you, they can head over.
Oh yeah, take a pic, man. You know, I've got pics out there on Facebook that you can see what's going on. My latest and greatest, as a matter of fact, is my cover image on Facebook. So
nice.
But where I was going with that is I was taking the emphasis on equipment from voiceover and applying it to podcasting. And then I also went, okay, I want to learn this medium. I want to know how to do this. And, you know, there's some tricks of the trade at a high level. So I started looking at some of these guys that if you go out and you do a Google search, you know, these guys have their SEO down to a science. And there's a couple of them that really come to the top of the surface. And you go, oh, okay, well, that looks cool. And this looks cool. Oh, my gosh, this guy tells me about all this equipment. And I was already in the equipment frame of mind from voiceover. So this cat recommended thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
Like a big sound mixer. And
the mixer's right here. I'm still using the mixer. But then if you have a limiter gate and you have a mix minus and you have a digital audio recorder to back up. You have this mic. You have to have this high PR40, which is a $400 microphone. you shouldn't use this mic because it does this, and then you need to record this way, and you need to wire it this way, and then you need to have this piece of software, and then you need to have my tutorials, which are hundreds of dollars. And you can also join my podcast training course, which is it's only $19.99 for 6 weeks, and we talk 6 times. So I mean, it's just I was like, whoa, there's so much to buy, and I did. I just bought it all. I'm just like, I'm a sucker. This is great. This is what you got to do. And so. I don't even know if I ever had it all hooked up properly, honestly. I mean, I got episodes out, and they sounded good eventually, but I don't. Yeah, it's probably not hooked up right now, to be honest with you. And I bought so much stuff that, I mean, there's some kind of sound blast or something sitting right there. I don't know what it's for, but I bought it. I've got a brand new mixer, a Scarlett 2i sitting over there, which is an interface. It's a digital audio interface. Never been out of the box. I've just bought so much crap. And I fell prey to that is exactly what happened when I started podcasting. And that over time, I started realizing you don't need this. You don't need this. You don't need that. You don't need that. Podcasting is also evolving every day, all day. And my concept of podcasting evolved maybe faster than even podcasting is evolving because, like we said earlier, I'm a rebel. So I figure out a way to do things, and I go, I don't like doing it that way. I'm going to do it this way.
What do you think is what someone actually needs for equipment? Because I agree with you that I believe you need to have a decent level of audio quality so it doesn't distract people from listening. But beyond that, it does not have to be the most pure, perfect, sterile audio ever.
I like a little hiss in the background. Not
yeah.
You might want to edit that out. But, just a little ambient white noise, I think is kind of cool. Now, a lot of people may not share that perspective. You have to understand that when I'm speaking to the way that I podcast and the way I recommend podcasting, it's not your everyday run of the mill podcasting. And some people are going to argue that it's not even podcasting. Larry, don't you dare call it a podcast. That's not a podcast. Well, if I record my voice in a digital format and I put it out there on the interwebs for people to listen to, in my personal opinion, and it's a fairly effective opinion, it's a podcast.
Yeah.
Nobody's running around. I say nobody. Fewer people today are running around listening to a podcast on an iPod than ever before. You don't need an iPod to listen to a podcast anymore. You have podcast applications on every phone. You can listen to it on an Android device. You don't have to have iTunes to listen to podcasts anymore.
Right.
So you have to understand. You don't, but I think people need to understand that you don't have to follow the status quo and create a podcast and cry when you don't make new and noteworthy.
You mean
which is.
You're using the term in terms of being on iTunes. So you could still release and share a show, even if it never goes on iTunes, it's still a podcast, you're saying?
In my personal opinion, yes. You can host it yourself. For instance, say I have a lawn company. I like to use this lawn company analogy for some reason. I don't know why. But I think I like to use it because you wouldn't think that a lawn care company would have a podcast. But in my personal opinion, everybody needs a podcast because a podcast is now you. It's your voice. You're not this sterile company that comes by and disturbs you on Saturday morning while you're trying to sleep in. You're right there. You're a friend. You're an associate. And if you take 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes to record an episode of your podcast and publish that on a consistent basis, you now have a podcast. I don't care if you post it on YouTube. I don't care where you post it.
Right.
Like
or
I said,
even just share it on your Facebook wall
exactly.
or whatever.
Share it on your Facebook
Page,
wall, page, whatever it may. Wall. We're talking MySpace now, aren't we? With the walls, and the wall was MySpace. I
think it's still a wall, a feed.
Is it a wall?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But anyways, so that's where I'm going with the whole concept, and that's where my book goes. My book is 1 + 1 = podcast.
Keep it simple.
Simplifying the equation of podcasting success. So what I'm saying is what you need is a recording device and a way to publish that content. That's all you need.
Right.
And you already have that. You have it on your phone. Every phone, your iPhones have voice memos. And I think the time limit on voice memos is somewhere up around 4 hours. And if you're talking for 4 hours, you need to find something else to do anyways because you don't have a life. So so you could do that. Android has its platform. It has its recording devices. There's one that I recommend in the book called Ferrite, Ferrite. No, I'm not sponsored by them. No, I'm not making a dime off of them. But it's great. It's a great device, or a great application. Sorry, it's not a device. It's an application. And it's really a studio on your phone. It's freaking great. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a little difficult to edit audio on a small device like your phone, because a lot of times you're splicing and you're cutting this and cutting that. And
hard to get like really small, fine details.
Exactly.
And stuff.
So it works. I don't recommend it for something that you're going to do a lot of editing with.
Right. Like if you're just, off the cuff, share something and you're not going to heavy edit, go with it. It's great. Makes
100%,
sense.
100%. But again, you can do the same thing with voice memos. There's so many different ways to do it. But if that's too off the cuff for you, you can get into podcasting and create you a set of equipment that doesn't break the bank and still provides the next level of audio quality. You can use I like an Audio Technica mic. It's a USB/XLR microphone. XLR is the typical microphone connector that you've seen probably in church there, when everybody's singing in the choir, they got an XLR cable coming off that microphone and usually going into the floor. Or you can go USB, which it plugs into your computer or whatever other device you have.
Well, that's what I have. So this is an Audio Technica mic.
That's the guy. What is it? 8120, I think it is?
2100.
2100. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it was $60, $65, $70. Totally worth it. I've never had trouble with it. I plug in just earbuds into the back just so I can hear it. So I don't do like the whole, what's it called? Like
headset over the ear
thing.
Headphones and stuff.
Yeah, like you have, which if you watch the video, you can see.
I think this looks cool.
Yeah, I think they look really cool too. I just do earbuds, but at least the audio is being captured with something a little bit better than the earbuds would be. But the only thing that I won't do with guests, like if they only have earbuds, I'll say, okay, let's fine, whatever.
Sure.
I won't do an interview if they're just speaking on the computer speaker, because then it also picks up my audio coming through their computer and it can get just like this echoey bad sound. So that's my only, I draw the line in the sand for there.
I do the exact same thing. I won't host a guest. Just like this morning, I had somebody that I was interviewing and she had me on speakerphone.
No.
And if they have you on speaker, odds are you're going to get feedback.
Right.
I hear myself bouncing back at myself whenever somebody puts me on speaker, and I will not record that. I mean, that's pointless. That's not ambient noise. That's distortion and that's connectivity problems. And you definitely want to avoid those types of scenarios because nobody wants to listen to that. Right. Going back to my lawn guy analogy, if he's outside recording while they're working on someone's yard and somebody comes by with the mower, as it goes by, kind of cool, right?
I say leave that in. Yeah.
Yes, 100%, because it gives realism. It gives you a feeling like you're there. And if you hear that mower, heck, you may even in your head start smelling cut grass. And now it may be eliciting an emotional response. And now you're not just hearing some guy talk. You're emotionally attached to what this guy's saying because of other sound effects and realism that is in that cut.
Right.
And that's what you want to do. You want to elicit emotional responses out of your guests and out of your listeners. And if you elicit that emotion, they're going to keep coming back. And especially if they're tuned into what you're doing, if they want to learn how to weed their yard, maybe you're doing an episode on weeding your yard. Maybe you're doing an episode on seeding the yard for spring, or how to clean out the flower bed, or whatever it may be. That's opportunities. And that's what I kind of get into with my book too, is that there's opportunities for everybody in any industry to have a podcast, and you don't have to go to great lengths to do it. So the lawn guy, he could be recording on his phone. The plumber can be recording from a job site. He may be maybe he's yanking a toilet off the wax ring, or who knows, but he's right there. He's in the thick of it, right? It's just dirty, and he's plumbing away, and it's just you may in your head see that plumber crack, staring back at you, and you might go, okay, I don't like that. Close my eyes, but whatever. It's still eliciting a response, right?
Right.
And it doesn't matter who you are. If you target your industry and your podcast to your industry, not only can you increase your footprint in your industry, you can also generate brand awareness. You're no longer just a trailer if you're the yard guy with your name on a fake sign there on the side. Well, it's a real sign if it's on the side of your trailer. But, just a cheesy sign sitting there, or one that you use the Walmart stick-on letters to build. You now have you can establish a brand and a voice. And a connection to your clients and even potential clients down the road.
And what do you say are the advantages of doing a podcast even over something that does have audio? I'm sorry, video, I meant. So what would you say are the advantages of doing a podcast, even if it's audio only, that's actually an advantage over doing a show, let's say, that had video?
Well, a lot of times it's just more mobile. If you're wanting to get good quality video content, I think you need to have an assistant following you around with a video camera, catching you from natural angles. Now, we have things like the Smooth, which, is like a gimbal. You can use one of those on a selfie stick and get some of those reverse angles of yourself and that sort of thing. But getting good quality video content is tough just because it's so tough to record without previous setup or an assistant following you around all the time. And, when I'm going to McDonald's and I'm ordering my double, people probably don't want to see me getting that recorded, right? I mean, it's just kind of how it goes. But I'm a big guy. I like my double. What can I say? So, not everybody is made for video, and I don't mean that they're ugly or that it's much more intimidating.
Yeah, that's true. It's less setup. Like even when we're recording now with a video, which I don't always do, I kind of let the guests decide. But I had to set up more lighting and make sure the backdrop's there. But if we weren't doing that, then I would just be like, oh, whatever. I'd be in my pajamas and not care. So there's just extra elements that go into setting it up.
Exactly. And you don't have to do that with a podcast, I mean, I'm in my home studio professional. I've got a Start shirt on and then I've got basketball shorts on. So,
Prove it. I'm just kidding.
So yeah, it's the truth. I came home and I had a business luncheon where I presented my book as well as some of my philosophies on podcasting and came home and I was like, well, I've got podcasts, but there ain't no need to be sitting around in these jeans.
Yeah.
Texas is hot. It's the summer.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing too is that your audience, if it's a video, they have to be stationary enough to actually watch the video. But a podcast they can listen to while they're driving the car or running on a track or walking the dog. So there's just more time in the day that people can consume an audio podcast versus video or even reading words.
Sure. And that's kind of where I go against the grain there as well to a certain extent, because people go, okay, well, how do I get my podcast out to the masses? And one of the ways that I recommend people doing it, especially in the early stages, YouTube. You can upload your audio as a YouTube video. It's going to have a static image. Take your static image, whatever it may be, your logo, and have that logo as your permanent screensaver or your permanent video screen, and then your podcast runs in the background. Some of your media hosts or those that publish your podcast for you offer this as an option. They'll push it to YouTube for you. And if you don't have video that you're uploading to YouTube, they'll simply upload your logo. So that's great too. And I say that it's great because it's a platform where you can get started. Every podcaster in the world will tell you that YouTube really isn't the spot for podcasting. You're not going to grow a massive audience on YouTube for podcasting. Now, if you make a video podcast like we kind of talked about, I disagree. Now, if you upload a podcast or an audio only with a static image as the background, you're probably limited in your reach there. But I say do that because, A, it's free.
Yeah.
See if you're going to continue podcasting. See if it's for you. See if it's something you enjoy. Listen back. Learn to edit your audio. Learn to not edit your audio all the time. Learn the tricks of the trade on YouTube. And if from there, if it develops into a video podcast, great. If not, your original content is all still located right there. You can download it again, move it to a media host if you decide to go with an actual podcasting media host, which a lot of people will tell you that if you don't have it on a podcasting media host, it's not a podcast. Larry, it's not a podcast. If you put it on YouTube, it's a video. Well, it's media.
Right.
It's content. It's
and
your voice.
The semantics and the words don't matter. Like you're just sharing valuable content and being able to connect with your audience in a better way.
100%.
And it's funny that you said that about YouTube because I had a guest on named Amanda Bond. I love her. She helps people with Facebook ads. So she's called the ad strategist. And just like a month ago, she emailed me and said, hey, I'm getting more on point with my SEO. And my episode of when she was on my show, which was episode 47, is actually ranking really high in Google searches and on YouTube. So she just reached out to me and said, hey, I updated a couple of links. Would you mind changing these? Because your stuff is being found on YouTube when you search for me. So would you please update it? And I was like, oh, wow, that's so amazing. So it just, and that, like you said, it's literally just my giant logo, no images other than my logo. And then the audio just plays, but it's getting exposure. It's giving her more exposure. It's giving me more SEO juice, because you can also link inside of the YouTube description back to your website.
Right.
And Google sees that as a valuable link back. So right. I love what you're saying there.
Yeah, and it's, again, what's the cost? Free.
Right. I know. Take advantage
it's
of
free.
It for sure.
How do you not love free? So you've got a phone already, so you're recording for free. You can use free software to edit if you so choose.
Right.
You can use a free platform in YouTube to host it if you so choose.
Mm-hmm.
And just recently, I found out about something after my book went to print. It's called Anchor. Anchor.
Oh, I was going to ask you about your thoughts on Anchor.
I literally just looked at it last night for the very first time. And with a quick glance over, it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to sign up and I'm going to create a podcast on there and just see what it's all about.
Cool.
But I haven't had an opportunity to go through all of the steps yet.
Mm-hmm.
But Anchor.fm, supposedly there are everything you need all wrapped into one free package.
Right. Yeah.
And they host your media. They push it out to the different media players. They do it all, and it's all supposed to be free. I didn't see anywhere where there's a bump for a premium version or anything like that. So I don't know if they hit you after you sign up, or I don't know how they make money. I don't really know how that works.
Yeah,
but
maybe advertising somewhere.
You know what?
It's play with it.
Not up to me. I don't have to know how they make money. You know what I mean?
That's not your business.
I don't know you. So
all right, I love that. And I'm going to link out to these things in the show notes. If anyone is just like, I'm driving and I don't remember all the things you said, you can go back and check them out and we'll link them out. Now, I want to jump into the book too, because a lot of people who listen to the show, some have a podcast, some don't. So if you want help, whether or not you have a show, then you definitely need to reach out to Larry, because you will help them get their show off the ground. You've got incredibly reasonably priced quick start packages, consulting, so you don't have to spend 5 months Googling stuff. You can just go to a pro and get help. And then if people have a show already, you help them even fine tune it and make it better.
Correct. And, let's temper making it better, because, and I say we're simplifying the equation of podcasting success. Success has to be left up to you. Yeah. You have to define what you consider successful. And something that I like to say is that a lot of people come back to me and they go, Larry, man, I'm just not getting the numbers. I only had, and although most statistics, there's the word, it wouldn't come out. Most statistics as far as podcasts go are at the episode level. But these folks can come to me and they'll go, Larry, man, I only got 100 downloads all month. Or, that episode only did 50 downloads. And you have to ask yourself, what if I had an opportunity to stand in front of 100 people and convey my message? So
right.
if I was in an office building, maybe a training room or an executive conference room that usually holds about, 20 people. If you had 50 people crammed in there and you're standing at the front up there by the pull down projector screen and you're projecting your message on the screen and you're giving a speech of what you have to offer to just 50 people, would you be intimidated? Would you be scared? Would you feel like, wow, I just got my message out to 50 people?
Right. Or would you be sad that there weren't
exactly.
more? Like you'd be
man.
I'd be totally, that's totally worth my time to show up.
Yeah, 100%. Sure. Especially for the low cost of free.
Yeah. And they're choosing to be there. It's not like they were forced as a part of like a business requirement,
Exactly. So that goes back to, what is success in your eyes? I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but being a top 100 podcast on iTunes or really any player or any kind of statistic-driven ranking system is probably not going to happen. Mm-hmm. I had to come to that realization. I just knew I was going to be the next Joe Rogan, and I was going to get 20 million downloads a month because he does somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 22 million downloads per month. that is insanity. For one, Joe's been podcasting for well over 10 years. For two, Joe Rogan he's Joe Rogan.
And he had an audience before podcasting. So
that's my point. Exactly.
Yeah.
He's the Fear Factor guy. He's the Ultimate Fighting Championship color commentator. He's a comedian.
Yep.
He was on some show. I never watched him on the show. He had some sitcom that he was on for a couple of years on, I think, NBC there for a while. So, I mean, he's a pseudo-celebrity of sorts.
Right.
And he's probably more so a celebrity now than he was even when he was on TV. So it took him years and years and years to even get to the level that he's at. And newsflash here, most podcasts don't make it past episode 7.
It's crazy, huh?
7. That's such a tiny you're not even in double digits yet. How are you going to bug out that early if you're investing any kind of skin in the game? You're just going to do 7. Okay, so my mom listened to it. She listened to all 7 episodes. Great. Okay, Mom, thanks, appreciate it. My mom will listen to my podcast, I promise. But you had somebody listen. You got more out of it than having anybody listen. Yeah. You got technique. You got opportunity to present. You got more comfortable with this mic in your face. You got more comfortable playing things back and hearing your own voice.
Yeah. I've definitely improved my speaking in the past years having my own show. For sure. Hands down, no questions. It's helped me in networking situations. It's helped me speak on stage. It's helped me in all the ways, being interviewed on other shows. For example, in listening back to my audio, I would always say so in between as a transition.
Yep.
But I never knew that until I listened to my own show and edited it. I was like, whoa, I'm saying that so often. So I really tried to reduce it. I'm sure I still do to a certain degree. But it just, that alone, I'm sure, improved my speaking in everything that I do.
Yeah, I'm a sure guy. So I'll have my guest talk. Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. Sure. Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, sure.
That's so funny.
Dude,
well, and then if you have an interview show, the other amazing connection point I love about podcasts is building that rapport with the guest. Sure. So
I want to say that was on purpose, but it really wasn't until it came out. It really wasn't until it left my lips. I was like, oh my God, really?
Oh, damn. That's awesome.
Oh, man.
All right. So yes. Everyone has to be convinced by now to have a podcast. How about a book? So when did you first think it'd be nice to write a book? Like way back when?
I'm not exaggerating when I say high school. I knew at some point in my life I had a bucket list that I wanted to complete, and a book was one of the big ones. And I say that because we did a lot of writing in my school, in my English classes, English 1 and English 2 with Miss Sidna Loden. She's one of the biggest influences of my life, and she was my English teacher. And she taught me how to write. And now if you look at my book's not, old school English, but she taught me how to write a research paper. She taught me how to write proper sentences. She taught me how to write proper sentence structure. And I knew at that time, based on the grades that I got, because I had to do 2 research papers my senior year instead of just 1, because this is, again, Larry is a rebel. Whenever you had you got your English paper done for that semester, you didn't have to go to English class anymore. You could just go to the gym, hang out, play ball, or whatever, right? So I wanted to go down and shoot hoops for the hour instead of, messing with a stupid research paper. So I decided to do my research paper on gardening. And I would turn in my index cards, which would lay in the framework for the research paper. It'd have like hoe, gardening tool used to remove weeds from garden. And then I had rake, gardening tool used to remove fallen leaves from garden. So it was just the lamest. But I followed every step. I did everything that you're supposed to do for this research paper. Turned it in. She goes, well, honey, yeah, this is great. You did a great job, but no. Because it was like a week and a half after it started. And she goes, no. And she always called me honey. I think she called everybody honey. She goes, no, honey, I hate to do it to you, but this just isn't going to work. You're not going to play basketball for 6 weeks. So
I love this gardening obsession you have, by the way.
I know, right? And it's so weird.
I have to just interject. When I started this podcast 2 years ago, I was living in Germany with my husband, and I convinced him to start a podcast, and he started the Landscape Podcast.
Oh, see?
So it's so funny that you're saying these things because my husband is in landscaping. He has a degree in landscape horticulture and design and all this stuff. So I just think cracking up that you happen to pick that as an example, but go ahead.
It is hilarious. But she came back. She goes, no, honey, you're not playing basketball for the rest of the semester. You're going to do another research paper. And I was like, Miss Loden, no, I follow the rules. She goes, yeah, but you kind of shortcutted it, didn't you? I was, well, okay. So she picked a topic and I had to do the Great Depression as my second research paper. And I spent 6 weeks in the Great Depression. I'll tell you that. So, because I wanted to play ball, But anyway, she was great, and I knew with her guidance I wanted to write a book. There were many times, during a lot of my 20s, even still today, I have a distant relationship with the martial arts. I owned my own karate school for a while, and I always had a desire to. You didn't even know that, did you?
No.
Yeah, I owned my own karate school in my late 20s for several years. It was a lot of fun. I fought competitive. If it's martial arts, I've done it. Basically, is what it amounts to. I may not have done it on the stage that I wanted to do it on, but I did it at a certain level. Thank God I was born with a birth defect, and it left me with 60% lung capacity. So do some of the things, I'm alive, which is great.
Yeah.
Because I had to have reconstructive surgery on my entire sternum, and my lungs are all crazy deformed. My lungs go like up into my clavicle and all the way down into my hips. They're real narrow. But it's kind of a weird X-ray. You look at that, you go, that ain't real. That is not real.
How are you standing here?
Even today. But, like I say, I'm still alive, thankfully, but it left me with some physical complications that prevented me from competing at the level that I'd always daydreamed. So I competed at the highest level that I possibly could and accomplished the things that I could accomplish at that level. So where was I going? Oh, I wanted to write a book, but I always had that self-doubt, that imposter syndrome of, even though I've got black belts in several different styles, I'm a second-degree black belt in American Kempo karate, and I have a lot of knowledge to share, but who am I to write a book on karate? I don't deserve to write that, and I would hear from higher ranking black belts, 4th, 5th degree, 6th degrees. They would go, Larry, I don't know if that's such a good idea. You're only a second. And, you should probably have at least these stripes on your belt before you start thinking about writing a book. So I should have still written it back then. Yeah. But it is what it is. So I never wrote it there. And there's been a couple of other topics that I thought about over the years that would be nice to write a book about. But that self-doubt, man, and that imposter syndrome just held me back, So I was lucky enough to come across you on Amazon, I believe is where I found your book, Copy That Pops, How to Write Copy for Your Podcast, right? And I think that's how I reached out to you, wasn't it? Based on your book? Is that how I found you?
I'm not sure. Or was it?
Telling everybody I found you.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the story.
Could be a lie because you're rebel, so we never know. We never know.
I think I'm telling the truth, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not sure that maybe we met in a podcaster group in Facebook saying, I feel like there was like a thread where it was like, what could you speak on? And I said, I can speak about entrepreneurs and podcasters becoming best-selling authors. And I feel like you reached out and said, I'd love to interview you for my show.
That may have happened.
But maybe you discovered my book first and then you saw me in the group and you're like, I already have a...
Well, see, that's one of the things. That's one of the things that I do to find guests. Is I'll go to Amazon and I'll go to the book section. I'll find a topic that I like, and I go to Amazon and I try to find an author on that particular topic, and I'll look through a couple of books until I find something that seems interesting to me, or an author that seems interesting on the particular subject, and I'll reach out to them because their contact information is usually on Amazon. If it's not, their website's usually somewhere, or Google's always there. Right. And if they're really somebody that I want to host, then I'm going to find them. And that's how I got some of the high-level guests that I've had on my show. I've had several MIT PhDs on my show. Why are they talking to Larry? He didn't even have a degree. But they come in and they talk about whatever their area of expertise is. One of them that I mention all the time, I'm a big origami fan. That's my soft side. I will fold paper. And not a lot of people know.
You are full of surprises.
I'm a diverse individual. I think for my wife and I, second Valentine's Day, we wanted to be cutesy, so we decided we would craft our gifts, you know. And she went all out and bought some chocolate and put it into molds. Oh, thanks, honey. That's creative. But me, you know, I took it to the next level. I folded a whole dozen paper tulips out of origami, and I put stems on it, and she still got them to this day in a heart-shaped crystal vase and all that, and I ate the chocolate. But I love this kind of stuff, man. Origami is always super cool. So I started researching origami, and I came across the gentleman. He is the first American to ever be given the rank of Cat Daddy by Japan. I don't think Cat Daddy's the actual rank, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. So I reached out to him. He's an MIT professor. He's done TED Talks and the whole 9 yards. And his mental capacity, I can't even comprehend it, because he creates new origami art. So he does the mathematics behind the folds and knows, you know, it's insanity. But I had him on, and how am I going to get that guy? How would I ever have talked to that guy if I didn't have a podcast? You know what I mean? But I found his book, reached out to him. He was very personable and brought him on. Same thing with some of my other high level guests. They all came from Amazon because I reached out. And, you know, I mentioned this as a way to get guests in my book. And I also cover a template. I provide the template that I use to reach out to people to get them on my show.
Love it.
And although I haven't ever gauged the success rate, I would say it's 80 percent that I get back on the show, or that replies back. And they might say, hey, no, we're traveling for 6 weeks. I'm going to speak in New Zealand, yada, yada, yada. Contact me here. And then I contact them. And, you know, I eventually get them on the show.
Yeah.
And actually I've got a stack of books right here from people that have been on my show. Well, this is my book. See, I'm on my show. This book just came in a couple of days ago. A Chip and a Prayer, Dr. Marvin Carlin's.
Is that a poker book?
It is a poker book. It's his adventures at the World Series of Poker. Ooh. And he is a PhD, a full tenured PhD professor at the University of Miami, I believe. So he's cool as a fan. He's been on TV playing poker. You know, I've got this one, The Empowered Veteran, Dwayne Perro. He's been on my show. He wrote this book to help veterans transition from military life to civilian life. And then Dr. Barbara Coloroso, I think she's a doctor. I may have misspoke. We'll just say Barbara Coloroso wrote this, The Bullied, and the Not So Innocent Bystander, how to prevent bullying, and you can tell that she you know, she's got some credentials just based on the size of the book. But anyway, those aren't the only books that I've got. You know, I've got a couple of others that my guests, they send me for saying, hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on the show. And even in A Chip and a Prayer, the poker book, I proofread the copy for him before it ever went to press. So I don't know if I've got a shout out in there or not. I need to check. But
I like your story of how we met better than mine. So let's go with it.
Yeah, you know, I was on Amazon. I stumbled across your book because I needed to learn how to write copy for my podcast, and man, it just rock and rolled from there.
Well, and that's a great example of, I mean, just in that story alone is a great example of why it's great to have a podcast and why it's great to have a book, because you're found on Amazon by people who are looking for guests potentially.
Sure. Definitely. And there I go, sure, and again.
Sure.
But definitely, all you're doing is you're creating media. It doesn't matter whether it's a podcast or a book or both or videos. You're creating an additional opportunity for your presence to have an impact on someone else.
Right.
And that's what you're doing. And if you can have the trifecta, hey, congratulations. You know, I'll tell you that I'm working on video right now, but I got to set it up the way I want it before I start pushing it out for people to see. Now, I do a lot of Facebook Lives, though. It's not uncommon for me to do a Facebook Live a couple of times a week. And I'll even do one from the Jeep that's vibrating. And people, I don't know if they watch it.
You
but
don't have your Raptor anymore?
I do not have the Raptor. I've got a new Jeep is what I ended up, a Jeep Wrangler.
Is it a bat Jeep?
It is not a bat Jeep, because when I bought one of those that's already Kevlared out, and the texture is Kevlar. I don't know if you've seen, excuse me. It's all the rage here in Texas. I don't know if it's globally or nationally, but they spray Kevlar on the. Think of it as, you know, like bed liner of a truck. You know, spray on bed liner. You familiar with that? Think of that over your whole vehicle.
So is it kind of bumpy looking? Like it's kind of rugged?
Yes, it's very textured, and you know, I couldn't do decals on it or anything like that. Because it is very, very textured. You could skin your elbow if you like brush up against it. You know, the wife has snagged some of her clothes. I was like, I hate this freaking Jeep, you know. But she wanted a Jeep too, so I'm like, hey, let's do it. But no, I sold the Raptor, you know. And I'll tell you why. You know why I sold the Raptor? Because I got disenfranchised with the community. And people make fun of me all the time. Go, Larry, community, it was your Raptor, it was your dream truck. I had it for 3 years. I took it off-roading, had some great adventures in it. It was phenomenal. I said to myself, I'll never, ever sell this truck. But I sold the truck because I didn't want to be involved in that kind of – I had a Facebook page that I started, North Texas Raptor Owners, and it grew and grew and grew. But even then, I started the page, and I ended up having some people moderate the page that were more Raptor centric, meaning this is how you do a Raptor. You don't, there's just rules you follow when you have a Raptor. But if I didn't know about those rules, I would still be strutting around in my Raptor thinking it's the coolest thing ever in the whole wide world.
You're too rebel to give in to them.
I know, but I just want to be loved, and they didn't love me.
Well, okay, I think that this really ties into business and stepping out there and writing a book and stepping out there and starting a podcast and stepping out there and having a video or doing videos. I always use the analogy of weddings. I don't know if I've ever said this to you. I probably have when we were like going through the coaching around getting your book out and everything. But like for me, the biggest time of social anxiety I ever felt in my life was when I was planning a wedding. And I honestly don't have a family that's really obnoxious about like, you need to do this and you need to do that. But I just had all these ideas in my mind about what was the right way to do a wedding. And I felt so much anxiety and tension the entire time. And I finally got to the conclusion that, because we didn't want to spend a ton of money, but we didn't want to be like dishonorable to the guests for flying out of the town to come in, and then it's like run down ghetto kind of a thing. So I just realized if we spend a little bit, like too little money, there are going to be people who are like, wow, so cheap, so losery. I can't believe they did that. If we spend a ton of money, we go all out, there's going to be people who will be like, wow, they think they are all that. They're showing off. So I was like, you know what? Everyone is going to have an opinion. Someone is going to talk shit no matter what you do for your wedding. Therefore, just do what you want, because you're just haters are going to happen, whether in your family or on YouTube, whatever. And so I feel the same is for business. So if you feel like you want to write a book, just do it. You are going to get haters. Once you get them, you can be like, ooh, there it is. I was waiting for it. It's not a surprise. Start your show. You're going to have people with opinions. Oftentimes they really are your family and friends, and they aren't helpful because they're not in your life. They have, you know what I mean? So that just really gets me rallied up, because there's always going to have someone who has got an opinion, is going to try to shut you down and tell you you're not good enough. And I just want you to say like,
I like that.
Screw you. I'm doing what I want. And just own it. Let's go. And find people who feel that way and surround yourself with them.
Well, see, and that's why I think you and I get along so well, is because I have started surrounding myself with people like that. And you especially share that same sentiment with me. And I love it. I think it's great. And that's one of the same things I've done with podcasting. I know that if you were to talk to Rob Walsh, the marketing director for Libsyn, which is one of the top media hosting services in the world.
He was just on my show a week ago.
Yeah, I saw that. I was so jelly. I know he's a great guy, but where I was going with that was that Rob Walsh would probably want to punch me in the mouth if he heard my take on podcasting and my stance on podcasting, because Rob's been around since the beginning and he knows podcasting better than most people on the planet. If not, he's one of the top 5 on the planet. But he has a very, very firm grasp on this is the definition of a podcast. This is what a podcast is. And Lair bucks that system, man.
I want to see you interview him, and I want to see if that's true. I mean, you're assuming we do not know what Rob would say.
I would give anything to interview Rob Walsh. I mean, this pinky right here, I'd cut off that first knuckle.
So if Laura helps you because you're in my inner circle, get an interview with Rob Walsh, would that make you happy?
It'd make me ecstatic.
Okay, note to self.
Yeah, that's a great Christmas present.
Oh my goodness.
Look, I'm getting all teary-eyed. That'd be so great.
When's your birthday?
August 30th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, I've had a little bit of exchange
here, but
Elsie. Is Elsie still around? I haven't listened to their podcast in a while. The Feed.
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Elsie Escobar and Rob Walsh, they have The Feed. Yeah, The Feed is great for people who want to, it's like podcasters who want to listen and talk about podcasting on a podcast. It's very meta, but it's great. Right. They keep you up to date on what is coming out. Mm-hmm.
My first podcast was, they have those features where they do a 5-minute discussion and you can send in information about your podcast. And accidentally the whole tip was featured on one of them. Yeah, but Readily Random has not been. I don't know why. It's like, well, I'm not going to send this one in, but I sent that one. You know, Man, I'll tell you what, I was so on board with that show. Oh, but no, interviewing Rob would be phenomenal. I want to get into the podcast movement scene, man. That's something that I want to do.
Yes. You
but
better
I gotta tell
be
you
there in July.
Oh my God, I'm going to do everything I can. So everybody, I need like 5,000 copies of my books to sell, please. And then call me for some consultations and we'll lay out a plan and I'll give you very reasonable rates on my packages that I have to offer.
Your rates are crazy reasonable.
I know they're ridiculous and they're probably a little too cheap. And you're not the only one that said that. I was talking about some of the folks out there that charge thousands of dollars.
Right.
But
you want to make it accessible to people too. Like
That's the whole point, and I think that if I can make it accessible, my whole goal is to get more podcasts out there and to get more people taking advantage of the opportunity to establish relationships with their clients and to present themselves in a manner that they've never presented themselves before. I do realize that some folks won't take advantage of it, but in this digital era, I think you have to. Traditional advertising doesn't cut it anymore. No. Billboards suck. Who takes out ads in the phone book? I can't believe they still print those stupid things.
I know.
The days of Google AdWords, those are over. About the only place I would still advertise is Facebook ads. Right. And you can take your podcast and create content, do a 15-second podcast telling who you are and what you offer. That's a podcast. It's only 15 seconds. Some people will call it a commercial, but you don't do it like a commercial. You do it as a podcast. And you put that in a Facebook ad. Boom! They love you. They love your content. You get preferential treatment. And you get advertising at an expense that is so small.
And you can target people directly that are ideal for your audience. It's not like a printed ad is going to like everyone in the entire city.
Exactly.
Like that's so untargeted. Like,
I don't even look at Facebooks. I don't even look at phone books. They show up on my front porch. They just go directly into the track.
Those out?
I still get them a couple of times a year. Wow. I'm like, what are you doing? How do people make money off these things? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. But it's a digital era. And it's only going more digital. Terrestrial anything is a dying breed. And there I'm going to piss off a lot of radio people that are listening to this right now because they're going to tell you that terrestrial radio will never die.
What is terrestrial radio?
Traditional FM AM radio.
Oh, you said traditional?
That's what I said the second time. I said terrestrial the first time because AM FM radio was called terrestrial.
It is?
Like extraterrestrial, only terrestrial.
Like
without
Earth
the extra.
Radio?
It's just like regular terrestrial.
Oh.
It's like, just...
See, you know the words, like you're in it.
Man,
So, okay, full endorsement from me because you have background in voice acting, voiceover work, terrestrial radio, and you're offering killer deals for people who want to start a podcast and are like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. Get me started in a simple way without. You don't have to buy 15 grand worth of equipment, or people who want to not improve their show, but simplify it or streamline it or have someone who really is experienced to bounce off new ideas and see, hey, could I improve my artwork? You're also an incredible graphic designer. So
and that's why I have a hard time focusing on things. I can do graphic art like you wouldn't believe.
Yes.
I've been down that path as well a couple of times, and I still do it today. I'll do artwork design. As far as podcasting artwork, I focus my energy there now. But I've done vectorizing. Pencil sketches. I've done raw art. I've done you name it. I've done it.
You're
as far as commercial art.
Stop podcast shop.
I'm a media. I say that my podcast is your communication concierge.
Oh.
Little French.
Yeah, so French.
S'il vous plaît français? That's probably terrible. S'il vous plaît français. I don't know.
S'il vous plaît is please, I think.
I do very good Russian too, very much.
Oh.
I work with a Russian guy, man, and he is Dmitry, and he actually texted me just a few minutes ago. Okay, he says you need to check your email. That's probably not good because he's in the office. But I always talk to him. Yes, very much, Dmitry. Hello, are you going to do this today, Dmitry? And he's like, Larry, would you just shut up? Would you like a vodka and potato for the lunch? Larry, stop. I'm calling HR. Sorry.
Oh, my goodness.
I love it, though. But anyhow.
Awesome. One last quick question.
Yes.
Circling back to the books, what would you say are some of the benefits you have gotten from, one, writing the book, even if it was during the process of it, two, having a book live, and three, just being a published author? What are some results that have come from this?
Well, today, as a matter of fact, I did a business luncheon presentation / speech for a local business mastermind group. I would have never had that opportunity if it wasn't for the book. So I'm already getting I'm getting speaking engagements. I'm getting speaking engagements. My level of just confidence has shot through the roof.
Yes.
I feel validated, and it's funny because after I did the presentation, I was sitting with a table of folks, and they called me an author. And I said, look, I'm really not an author. And, they held up the book and went, well, this looks like your name right here. And then one of them flips it over and goes, yep, he's got an ISBN number. He's an author. So, I mean, it's the real deal. It really is. And I came home and told my wife that story, and she's like, dude, you have got to quit undercutting yourself.
Right.
Because it's legit, dude.
Yes.
So, I'm thanks to you, I went #1 bestseller in 4 different categories on Amazon. And I mean, that's the real deal. I mean, it's legit, and I need to take pride and kind of let the ego go a little bit. I mean, I got a hard time sometimes of keeping the ego in check, but this time I need to let it, I need to let my pant legs down a little bit. So, anyway, it's just, I've got I've been on podcasts that I would not have been on if it wasn't for the book. It's giving me an opportunity to reach out to other podcasts to broaden my horizons and expand my footprint and bring more brand awareness to my brand. Mm-hmm. It's done things that me as little old Lair would not have been able to pull off. That's just because I wrote a book. Mm-hmm. And it's like I tell a lot of folks, you had a 30-day gig where we were going to write a book in 30 days. And I signed on at the very last minute. And for the first 10 days, I started writing a book. It was about podcasting, but I was taking it down this path that I'm reading it back and I'm going, man, that's just like a memoir or something. Nobody care about you growing up in a trailer park and eating spam every night. So I deleted everything on day 10 and started from scratch. So I literally wrote a book in 20 days, got it published, got first #1 bestseller in 4 different categories. And just last week, I finally got my printed copy, and I've got a box of them sitting over there against the wall.
Nice. Hold them up.
And I got to tell you, it's pretty cool to walk into a place to do a presentation, and you're giving away copies of your book to everybody there, and you're taking in a case of your books. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool, and I tell you, it's instant. You're instant credibility. Everybody is like, oh man, you wrote a book, so you're the real deal. And it's amazing to see the difference the way they treat you with a book and the way they treat you without a book.
You're just another person. Now you're a leader. You're seen as a leader with a book.
Well, that, and I'm a superstar. I was sitting there paying my tab, and I was talking to the waiter, and I don't know what we're talking. Oh, I know the owner of the place where we were at. So I said, man, I wish Jason was here. It'd have been great to see him. And he goes, well, I'm real glad you got, and we're just having this chat back and forth. And all of a sudden, one of the attendees puts their book down in front of me with a pen on top. And I looked down and I looked back at the waiter. I said, excuse me, I gotta sign it.
My fans are waiting. I'm so sorry.
I gotta sign this real quick.
Did anyone ask to take a picture with you holding the book?
We do have a group picture. It's out there on Facebook already. I'll tag you in it so you can see it. So you can.
I'm going to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, there you go. My very first presentation from my book.
Yes.
Thanks to Laura.
And you got some leads out of it too. Didn't random people you had never talked to reach out to you?
Oh, definitely.
Through your book. And
definitely.
I mean, your book at the time of recording this has been live for a month? No, 2 months.
Yeah, I finished it.
Not quite 2 months. So
right at the end of March. Mm-hmm. So yeah, 6 weeks.
And so you've already leveraged it like crazy. We're not talking years. We're talking weeks.
We're talking weeks. We're talking days.
Yeah.
Once the ebook version of it launched, I automatically started pushing that and saying, look, folks, I have my book out. And, that provided a certain level of credibility. But at the same time, you're still going, it's an ebook,
you don't
and everybody
feel it yet fully.
Exactly. But when you get this in your hand and you're touching it and you're smelling
Smell
it
that
and,
book smell.
and you're fanning yourself with the pages and you're just like, man, this is the sexiest book I've ever seen in my life. And it's not even 50 shades of anything. So
do you like to snuggle with it at night?
I do. I sleep with it, but just under my pillow.
Uh-huh.
And I've got I'll tell you what I was going to do. And my wife wanted me to do it, but I just could not go through. I told her, I said, when the books get here, because I bought a case, and I said, I'm going to dump all the books out on the bed.
Yes, take a picture.
And I'm going to take a naked picture of me just covered up with my books.
I didn't know it was going to go that direction.
You're like, oh yeah, take a picture.
I thought you meant lying on the books, not the books lying on you.
Yeah, I was going to have books in the places they needed to be, but
like American Beauty with all the rose petals.
Yeah, instead of rose petals, I was going to have copies of my book. But
oh my goodness.
Then I figured nobody would want to buy them. It's like, was this the one you used for, who knows?
Hey, maybe they could be a limited edition. You could do a special promo. You could be like, you get to pick which one you want.
Or you got to stop, because I can take this places you don't want to go, I promise.
I'm going to have to make this episode explicit no matter what, so just go for it.
Yeah, well, I was, just autograph it with just like put my penis in an e-pad and then press it to the book. Go, all right, this one's signed with penis, and it's just. Just go, I want that edition. Do like 6. These are 6, and all together they equal 6 inches. So, but just sell those
just
for
the tip on each one.
Yeah, that's all you get right there. So.
Oh my God.
That's the kind of shit I pull on accidentally. That's the kind of comedy that we would go with on accidentally. So. My
face hurts from laughing on this episode. Wow, that that is a photo shoot that none of my clients have done yet. So,
and for good reason.
You are a rebel.
I can tell you right now that if I hadn't gotten to the weight that I'm at, it would have happened. I can promise you 100 pounds ago that would have happened.
So, if you have some weight loss goals that you hit, would that photo shoot be a reward?
100%. It's on, man. I'll order another case of books just for the shoot. I guarantee it. If I drop 100 bills, I'm in.
All right. So people need to reach out to you on social media and let you know if they will put their name down as wanting one of these copies if you hit your weight loss goals. So look for Larry on Readily Random on Twitter and Instagram. And also Facebook, man. Readily Random. And then for personal Facebook, Larry N as in Nancy.
Nolan.
Larry N Roberts is for your personal Facebook.
That is correct.
Oh my goodness. I hope people reach out to you and let's crowdsource the energy for this photo shoot. I
think we could do it. I need like a dietitian.
Dietitian, reach out.
Yeah, that would be great. Dietitian, reach out, and there's just somebody to really kind of hold me accountable.
Well, I'll do that. Okay. I mean, I'm not as much for the weight loss accountable.
I'm not sending you nudes. Your husband will not appreciate that.
No. Oh God, no. I don't want any proofs. Yay! I don't want any proofs or like test shots of this. Okay.
Oh, my mic almost got drenched in Monster.
You almost spit your Monster out on that one.
So yeah, let's do it, man. Let's get it going. Okay. And we drop 100 bills, and we got a nice little. What was the movie with the roses? The rose petals.
American Beauty.
Yeah, that's right. We'll do an American Not So Beauty photo shoot.
American Naughty.
Yes, with 1 + 1 = podcast, simplifying the equation of podcasting success.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show. We did like a little Facebook Live that I repurposed, and it was more for videos. And actually someone listened to it and said they loved it, but they felt like they really need to go back to the site to watch that one. And this one, we're a little bit more geared toward the audio, but I am sure we're going to do a round 3, 4, 5. I really enjoy talking with you and awesome. Being a part of your journey to massive mega expert in podcasting world and everything.
We're going to share the stage before too long. We're going to share the stage. I guarantee it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So anyways, Laura, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your show and hawk my book and all of my ramblings. So
thank you so much. It's been so fun.
We'll talk again soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye.